Yo, what is up, YouTube? It's your boy from back with another video, man, and we here reacting to the Celtics for it never be the same. I love basketball fan, fanatic. I am a LeBron James fan, so I hear a lot. I see a lot. Not biased either. I don't know. But I would love to see everybody's takes on the whole playoffs of what's going on right now. Um, Everybody's weighing in heavy on the Celtics, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. Jimmy is a different type of beast, but come on now. Two superstars not performing. They got beat by like 20 or a high 18-17 last night. Come on. I'm pretty sure somebody said Tatum had 14. I ain't watched the full game.
For an off-season of change. After making the finals last year, they have certainly disappointed in this postseason, losing to Miami in the Eastern Conference Finals, and I definitely think we've got some big changes coming for the Celtics. Now, first and foremost, the biggest thing in terms of the Celtics offseason, what they're going to do moving forward, revolves around Jaylen Brown, because throughout the entirety of the season, we've been getting some rumors about the fact that maybe he's not super happy as a Celtic, where he's been in trade rumors for years. They reportedly put him on the table in exchange for Kevin Durant this past offseason, and ever since that moment, ever since that report came out where they had to smooth things over with Jaylen Brown, they had to go talk to him, they had to say, hey, you're our guy moving forward, don't worry about it. Ever since that moment, things have been a little bit weird with him, and the assumption was that if he made All-NBA this year, that they would be able to sign him to the big Supermax contract, they would re-sign him and it wouldn't be an issue. He did make All-NBA. I would expect them to offer as well as him accept the Supermax contract, but that doesn't mean that Jaylen Brown will continue to be in Boston long term. And you could look at this from two different perspectives. You could look at it from we would rather him not be here if he's just going to be unhappy and maybe not perform that well. We'd rather get ahead of that, move him to a team like Portland that wants to trade multiple assets to try and build around Damian Lillard, trade him to a team like Houston that maybe wants to start building something a little bit more competent there. You could look at it from that perspective, and you could also look at it from a perspective of, yes, we've had a ton of success with Tatum and Brown together. We've had a great run going all the way back to 17 and 18, but maybe it's time to move on. Maybe just a shake up in the roster, maybe a different construction is what this group needs. Regardless of Jaylen Brown's happiness, maybe he's the guy to move, and the contract situation just makes it that much more complicated, because the way that the CBA is going to work over the next couple of seasons, if Boston commits to Jaylen Brown and they re-sign him to the huge deal, they've got Tatum, they've got Brown, and it's going to be really difficult to build out the rest of the roster around them. These last couple of seasons were their best chances to try and really do something in the postseason, whether it be last year with some of the younger guys still on smaller contracts, or this year bringing in someone like Malcolm Brogdon. Moving forward, like, Al Horford's not going to get any better. Rob Williams is going to have some issues in terms of injuries, and you've got Brown and Tatum, and those two guys give you a chance, as we've seen the last season and a half. They give you a chance to maybe make the finals, but if they don't really work well together, if one of them is unhappy, if you underperform again in the postseason maybe next year, maybe it is time to look at moving on from these guys. And again, I think there's going to be a lot of teams looking to pounce on that and maybe look to trade for Jaylen Brown, and so you could get pretty good value. Now, the other side of this, if you're Boston, if you're a Celtics fan, is are we overreacting to this a little bit too much? Like, maybe all this team needs is a new coach or a shakeup in the coaching staff, providing a little bit more support to the head coach, whatever the case may be, because they were in the finals this time last year. Like, they were a team that was contending for a title. They were a team that were 2 wins away from the ultimate goal, from winning a championship. And maybe we shouldn't overreact too much to what was, yes, a disappointing end to their season, but things like this don't necessarily happen, losing to Miami the way they did, them being an 8 seed, but things similar to this happen sometimes to all but the absolute best teams, in a certain era. Like, the Warriors never had anything like this, right? Like, LeBron never had anything like this when he was with the Cavs or the Heat, with the exception of the 2011 finals. But like, when you're really good, but not like unbelievably great, like era defining good, sometimes things just happen. And maybe it's okay to just take a breath, evaluate the coaching situation,
Whoa. Tatum and Brown are some pretty good stars in Boston. Like, if I'm being honest here, they underperform. Way underperform. They did come back with like 3 games, but you gotta finish out if you're doing all that. Tatum been going stupid too. But to say it's mostly coaching. I don't know.
Bring back the roster, albeit an expensive one, and still try and go grab the title next year, because next year you're going to be dealing with, I guess, maybe Miami, Milwaukee, maybe an improved Knicks team, maybe Philly, all teams that Boston has shown over the last 2 seasons they are capable of beating in the postseason. They did it to Milwaukee, they did it to Philly, they did it to Miami, not this most recent season, but in the past, and maybe it's okay to not overreact. Having said that, this is the NBA. What the one theme is constantly within the league is things change. We react when things don't go well, and even if you make the conference finals the year after making the finals, and on paper that seems like an acceptable outcome, the optics of this, the way this team has looked, the way that they've kind of given up, the way that maybe the coaching situation doesn't look fantastic, everything that they dealt with since losing the finals last year points me in a direction of thinking that they are going to make some drastic changes. And it might not be the Jaylen Brown thing. I think that's the first thing they're going to evaluate, whether he's worth as much money as he's going to be eligible for on a supermax, whether he's happy there, whether him and Tatum work super well together now moving forward as they both kind of try and be the alpha guy. I think they're going to evaluate that first and foremost, but I think other things are going to come up for evaluation as well. Whether Marcus Smart is going to be on the team long term, whether they can maybe get some value out of someone like Rob Williams.
They need Marcus Smart. I'm not going to lie.
Maybe they need to look at, the Grant Williams situation. He's a free agent. He's someone they're going to have to deal with his future contract. There's a lot more questions here in Boston than I think anyone would have thought that they had. And at this point, the only thing that I feel I can say for certain about Boston's roster next year is that Jason Tatum's going to be on it. That's pretty much it. I could see a scenario where Jaylen Brown's gone. I could see a scenario where Marcus Smart, or Rob Williams, those guys are gone. There certainly could be a significant shakeup. But the other thing that I would point to here, if you're Boston, apart from the fact that obviously, they made the finals last year and they made the conference finals this year and they've still been a very good team, is at a certain point you just have a window, right? And Boston tried to capitalize on it with the Derek White trade, sending a future first, with bringing in Malcolm Brogdon by trading away some assets. They tried to capitalize on their window. I think they were right. I think they were correct in assuming that last year and this year, once they got to be really good in the middle of the year last year, that was their window. I think they're correct in that. And I think it's also easy to explain this as just the Ime Udoka thing screwed them up. Like, if he came back as coach this year, they are, I would guess, at least a team in the finals and potentially winning the whole thing, depending on how they would match up with whoever comes out of the West. But I think that it's possible to look at the situation that simply and say, yes, maybe Jaylen Brown has
what is this for
in the conference finals. Maybe there's some issues between him and Tatum in terms of how they play together. Maybe he is a little bit unhappy. Maybe you could make some adjustments to the roster. But I think it's also as simple as just saying, if Ime Udoka is the coach, if they don't go through what they did this past off season, I mean, even if Ime Udoka does go, but Will Hardy is still on the team, because the Udoka thing happens like past the coaching cycle. So Will Hardy gets hired away to Utah. If he's still there and he takes over as coach, maybe they're still fine. And I do think that what I think is going to happen, what I think should happen are pretty far apart on this. What I think is going to happen is Boston's going to do something pretty drastic, like whether it be a Jaylen Brown trade or trading away multiple rotation pieces or looking at this from a different lens.
A Jaylen Brown trade would be so crazy to see.
Window, despite the fact that Tatum's going into their prime.
That tweet would be insane.
I think. But what I think maybe they should do is look at where they were in the middle of the year last year, right around a 500 team, not anything super exciting. Then you go on the run, you make the finals, and then this year make the conference finals. Like, if they had lost to Philly in round 2, or if they had played Milwaukee in the conference finals and lost in 5, 6, or 7, I think we look at this entirely differently. Despite the fact that it looks really bad, the coaching looks bad at times, again, that's going to be evaluated. From a roster standpoint, there are few rosters in the East, if any, that I would pick over this Celtics group, and I would hesitate, if I were them, to suddenly make super drastic changes unless they're necessitated by the Jaylen Brown situation, either from a financial standpoint or from a, he just doesn't want to be there anymore, wants to go to his own team standpoint. With the exception of those two outcomes, I really would hesitate to start to shake up this roster in a significant way, because a couple of weeks ago, most people thought this was the most complete roster in the entire Eastern Conference, and going into this series against Miami, people thought they were pretty much a shoe-in for the finals. Having said all that, I'm excited for the content. I'm excited to see what Boston ends up doing. I think the Portland thing is super interesting, because whatever Portland would trade them doesn't really fit along the Tatum timeline here. So if they did, Jaylen Brown to Portland, let's say they give Jaylen Brown the Supermax, he gets traded to Portland. I'm not sure what the trade rules are on that, but let's just say that's the timeline, right? And you get the 3rd pick, you get Anthony Simons, and you get some other stuff. That's cool. That's interesting. That's good Jaylen Brown value. And I think it's kind of what Portland would like to do. But then do you flip that that for another guy that actually does want to be there? Like, what's the next move for Boston? Like, everything's been built around these two guys from the time that they got there, and it was clear that they were going to be really good and really good together. It's been about keeping them together, despite Anthony Davis trade rumors, despite Kawhi Leonard trade rumors, despite Kevin Durant trade rumors. Some of the best players of this era in the league, they've held on to these guys for. And so now, are they going to look at this situation and realistically trade away Jaylen Brown for future assets? Because I don't know, because they're not going to trade Jaylen Brown, I don't think, to a team in the East and make them better while Boston takes a step back. So I don't know that there's a team in the West that would give up a ton of stuff for Jaylen Brown that would help them in an immediate sense. It's all going to be long-term stuff, and I just don't know how that all fits together with Tatum. And so again, unless it's necessitated by money or by what Jaylen Brown wants to do, I think they should run it back. I just don't think that's what's going to happen.
I like that. I like that. I like that. I was about to say something. It was in my mind. Oh, I think the only reason why a lot of us are kind of shocked and surprised and kind of bad mouthing the Celtics, bro, is because like y'all had a great playoff run until y'all got to an 8th seed team and lost. I'm talking about it was 3-0 to an 8th seed. That's not something that should happen with two superstars who are genuinely scoring machines. For them to underperform like that is crazy. It can be coaching, but it's also got to be players too. I don't know. The offseason is going to look crazy for the Lakers too. I'm not even about to bring up the Lakers right now. But that'll be the end of the video. Y'all remember to like, comment, subscribe, comment what you want me to react to next. It's been waiting for me. I'm out. Peace.
And you know that's my brother. Yeah. Forever, 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 never, forever, never, forever, 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 ever, ever, ever. You know that's my brother. Yeah. You know we got each other. Me and him and yes, whoever.